Hey, how's it going, Craig?
Oh, couldn't be better. Uh, yeah, not really much to talk about today. I'll see you guys in 2023. All right.
Yeah, man. I mean, I sent a note to some of to some of the coaches and a couple of guys, and I'm like, hey, I mean, you're gonna see what I said publicly, and of course, like I am critical. I mean, there are things to be critical about when it came to the performance of this World Cup. But at the end of the day, I know you and I think, and Liam and some others know the exact constraints that this team has been under for forever. I mean, I stated that, somehow, some way we were able to afford at least a tier one in length camp for this. And it, for the most part, it bore fruit in the PNC, but
Yeah.
it didn't necessarily bear fruit in the World Cup. And part of that was because, we had the strongest pool of the World Cup. But there were other things which I think we'll get into. But yeah, it was pretty intense. I would say about the rest of my weekend, I'm in Central Texas. Went to Baylor homecoming. Baylor 6-0. So good for my girlfriend's alma mater.
University of Texas went down though to Oklahoma. So.
Oh yeah, that was good too. That was great. And then VMI also won. So I have no idea. Like when I was in college, we did not have a winning season. I don't think at any point when I was in college, did our record, like during the season, was it ever a winning record? Like it was always a losing record. So anyone who goes to a college where football is like big and king, when your football team is good, there is something completely different about campus. Well, I never had that, so
Yeah.
they have that up here in Baylor, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah, non-rugby related weekend was good for me too. I had a nice night out with the wife. We went to she surprised me with a high ropes course. Date night. So my
nice.
folks were babysitted. And,
nice.
We did some zip lining and some balance death-defying stunts in the trees there. So
it sounds like a pretty fun time.
Yeah, good. It was very unique. She's very creative date planner.
I'm kind of jealous. No, I'm apparently my girlfriend is. She has apparently. What the heck? She has apparently planned my birthday. And so that will be an interesting one. So that I got that coming up next month. But the non-rugby stuff was good. Rugby stuff, again, really just frustrating.
We did worse than Uruguay and Canada now. Canada drew their way through the cancellation. Now we're the only MLR heavy side that had 0 points.
Oh my gosh, it kind of sucks about that and all the other hunya. Like, how do we leave this thing without points? We'll get into some of a ton of that, I think, but I kind of want to hit on a lot of the MLR stuff that we had over the past week or so, and then we'll really get into a deep dive of analysis for the I guess I mean we I don't really think we need to go into Argentina too much because in a lot of ways, if anyone had read James, I would say that the Eagles would have beaten the brakes off of Namibia. to be honest. Tonga's form, I will say Tonga's form, like if we charted the way the U.S. and Tonga played in the first 3 rounds of pool play together, their trajectory of going up and rounding out into form was like, if you looked at where they were at in the PNC, so the Eagles are up here, right? Tonga's down here. So Tonga, like each game, their trajectory went, so they're under. It went like this.
This is great podcasting.
Straight up. And
it's an up arrow.
And then we were very like light on the improvement. Well, yeah, I would say Tonga is very inconsistent. I think that what we saw really was that the only thing that matters for them is the World Cup. Oh, they qualified. They're good. They're going to mail in the rest of their schedule, and they will peak during the World Cup, which they did. They peaked during the World Cup. It's important to note that every single one of those players plays in a first division competition in Europe, whether that's in the Premiership or in France. We only have 3 guys playing in a first division competition. So we'll have more next year because Bryce Campbell's going up with London Irish, and maybe Ben Landry's going to Bath. I'm going to get into that, but let's try to get some of this MLR stuff out of the way.
Take us away.
So Ross Dipperschmidt re-signed with New Orleans. He was an academy guy that they brought in, a senior academy guy that they signed to a senior squad contract last year. Good to see him come up. Houston has signed Rugby Northland U20 prop Boyd Wiggins for the 2020 season. That's going to be very important for them. Lock Cody Keys. Or Connor Keys, not Cody. I don't know why I said Cody, but Cody rather. But Connor Keys, who was on the World Cup roster for Canada, has signed with Atlanta. So they are signing a bunch of Canadians. I guess all the teams in the South like Canadians.
Well, the Canadians like the teams in the South.
I would too if I had to live.
Yeah.
You know, I guess Josh Larson is going to have a 3-game suspension from the game against the Springboks. Murphy Terramai of the Arrows has actually signed for the Hurricanes in Super Rugby, so good for him. Yeah. This guy's name, this lock, he's a monster. Phil Torigno, the U23 Academy coach and a forwards coach with Rooney, and he's the forwards coach of West Point, said this about this guy, Florius Petrus. Great name. I joked with the Seattle media folks. It's like, if you're gonna have a funny name, at least be named like a Roman legionnaire, because that's like it. That was great. FP Pelzer. He is playing with the Greekus. Phil Rigner says he's a monster. Has had probably the reason why he hadn't broken into Super Rugby was because he had some injury issues early in his career. But when he was down with the Greekus over the summer last year, that this kid can ball. And right when I was okay, James, I gotcha. Good. Yeah, I didn't think Canada was gonna beat Namibia. So this guy is apparently really good. And right when I thought they needed a lock, because Api Nakatini signed with Old Glory, they just went like this lock appeared out of thin air like magic. If you're a Free Jacks fan, buy your tickets. Those are out. I guess the biggest one last week, really, Digby Ioane. That wasn't the biggest one, but a really good signing. Wallaby was playing in the top league this last year, has signed with Glendale, so that's a good one. But the biggest one, what was the biggest signing this week?
Perhaps certain All Black going to the West Coast.
Yeah, Manonu. That was that's something. Like, and the crazy thing about that was he was in contention to make this at least the rugby championship squad. His form, like he was ready. Like if you go on to the All Blacks YouTube channel, they have a bunch of different highlight packages from him. Like
Is he now officially the most, greatest successful career joining in the MLR? Most accomplished, I should say.
Well, he's the most accomplished multi World Cup winner. Still in shape. Like Mills Mulaina, when he signed with Pro, although he was a Centurion All Black, he was like he'd been out of rugby a little bit. He was battling injuries, and he had he was going to play with Life West, so he gets a doctor in chiropractic degree, and then Pro signed him, because he was already out there. But he was like done. Whereas this guy had a renaissance of a season in Super Rugby. So this is probably, that back line for San Diego is, if you thought it was good last year.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of time and there's still going to be more signings for other teams. But man, right now, if I'm a defense coach, I just don't know what I'm doing about game planning for San Diego.
Yeah, because I just think about it, 9-15, Nate Augsburger, Joe Peterson, let's go Savanaka or Vosau. Then you've got, let's say Manonu, and then you've got JP Duplessis, and then on the right wing, where you're going to go Ryan Matias, and at fullback Teo. Like, what?
Yeah, you have Dylan Audsley in the bench.
And then you got Dylan, like, there's, like, 9 through 15. I think the only question about them is, like, who, because I'm pretty sure they brought in another halfback. So who's going to, outside, so get them some 9 depth, and then, but, yeah, it's going to be a scary season if you're playing San Diego this year. It's not on my list, but the Old Glory DC just signed a commercial officer to join their front office staff. So that's going to be pretty big. He'll come in under Jimmy Kadihi, I'm pretty sure. So, it's the business of MLR continues to keep coming. Brock Stoller re-signed with Seattle. And then you've had Will McGee has chosen to go back home. I guess we're the land. The United States is the land of his fathers and mothers, really, because his dad's from Boston and his mom's from Pennsylvania, and so. As an American raised in London, he's going home. He is an Ealing boy, but he's going to play for London Scottish. So I think he's going to be able to get a chance to play a lot, whereas he was sort of became embattled in Glendale for whatever reason.
He needed a change of pace.
Yeah.
I think this will be great for him. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's done great things for the USA. There's a great opportunity, so I'm happy for him.
And then the weirdest thing I saw this week is D1A's regulations are finally on their website. So if you're a college player and you're looking to play MLR, read those. If you're a prospective high school student and you're being recruited to play rugby, which is
kind of knocking on your door for a major
collegiate rugby is kind of the Wild West when it comes to how like there are no contact periods. Like a coach can call you whenever, and you can talk to a coach whenever you want, but it is pretty close to being NCAA like. It's not. Their limited regulations are the breadth of them is very significant on what what could kill your eligibility. And this is a club sport. Like, okay. I mean, I get the point. I get the point, but at the end of the day, we should, since men's rugby is likely never going to go NCAA in college, we need to align holistically. MLR teams need to link in locally, throw in some resources, make this a holistic development system so that we can, getting more guys playing better rugby more often. And also, if a guy's ready, if he wants to play for college, let's make it so that an academy system with an MLR team doesn't kill his eligibility. I mean, there's a difference between playing first team rugby and playing a summer series wearing a jersey where he's paying for everything and somehow being declared ineligible, which happened last year. So multiple times. But yeah, so that's sort of it. When it comes to, I normally try to dig in on the stats in World Rugby. Has been very good. If anyone's following, go to rugbyworldcup.com/matches, and you can go look at these things. I would say working with MLR, this is
a template for the MLR app.
I don't know about that, but I would say the stats are very similar in what World Rugby is able to do, except that World Rugby probably has every single stat analyst company that works in rugby has been hired to work on this engine, because I was talking to some Super Rugby folks and the Western Force, and they send all their film off and they don't get an analytical breakdown until 24 hours after the game. So that's, what we deal with in Major League Rugby when it comes to statistics reports, is 24 hours after the game is when we get the full breakdown. But this was in real time. So this was like pretty close. When it comes to this game, Craig, what do you think, man?
So if you didn't have the unfortunate experience to see it, the USA lost since our last recording, both to Argentina and to Tonga, but as of early this morning, Eastern time, to Tonga. I think it's disappointing. I think, we all talked a lot about what would be success in this World Cup. I don't think we could say we found success as a team. I think we showed glimpses, and, for whatever that's worth. I mean, everyone probably showed glimpses. I'm sure Namibia is going home saying they showed glimpses. But we really did show glimpses that I thought were great. I thought there were 20 minutes against Argentina where we were the better team. I'm actually not sure there was any point against Tonga where we were the better team, but we at least had some phases where we showed what we could do if we attack with the ball in hand instead of kicking away after every 3 or 4 phases. So, I think there's certainly a lot to build on. The first thing is the heart effort of this team and the coaching staff. I think they seem to be, as far as I can tell, really bought into the system, bought into Gary Gold, bought into each other. And so the outcomes may not have met with that, but, it came through to me as sincere, and I think that will be the most important thing now as we look to the next 4-year cycle as a starting place to build.
Looking at the World Cup and the Eagles leaving and what our campaign looked like, it was not a disaster, but it wasn't a success. The people out there, and I'm seeing it all over the internet, because apparently American Rugby Twitter is now alive and pissed off. And it's, where were you guys 3 years ago? 2 years ago, last year? I mean, I need you guys to be engaged so that we can just, all the time, not just once every 4 years. But seeing the opinions that what hurt, it doesn't hurt me. It does annoy me. Seeing the opinions of we have taken a step back. It was a disaster. It was a mockery. It was a travesty mockery, or so. That was one of the words one of my roommates came up with in college. A travesty, a sham, and a mockery. It wasn't any of those things. It wasn't an unmitigated disaster, but it was not a successful campaign. The Pacific Nations Cup was a successful campaign.
Yeah.
And we did not build upon that. Now, as like you said, we had in 3 games, especially against France, I think, and against Argentina, there were about 20 to 30 minutes in each game where it said we belonged here. And I would say more so in the Argentina game, the game went long enough to where we were physically still in the game for a very long time. Like, we physically wanted to be there, and the effort was still there. I think in the France game, our fitness failed us. And it wasn't that we didn't want to be there. It was just that they put on their starting front line. Like, they put on their starting tight 5 at minute 60, and minute like 55, and in 10 minutes, our starters and backups were gassed. And that's just, and this is where if anyone wants to follow an analytical mind out there that has coached at a high level in the U.S., go look at Pete Steinberg's Twitter follow and just read his stuff, and he talks about this. And it's like, he's a very process-oriented guy, and he and I work together. And I'm an outcomes-oriented guy. It's just, I think that's an Army kind of. Even though in the Army, like, you know this, Craig, because we served in the same unit, like, in a different period of time. But like the Army is a very process-oriented place, but outcomes is everything. Outcomes are the only thing that matters. And it sort of feels like that.
No one ever says who had the better processes in the war. Who won the war.
Yeah, so it was like, and he's a process guy, and he talks about process, and he looks at all of this stuff for the Eagles and especially the World Cup. And, it's very difficult for me to sit here and say, I'm pleased, because I'm not. I think, but I did say that, if we somehow looked competent in 4 games, but we lost all 4 games, you could call it a successful campaign, but we didn't look competent in all 4 games. We got the brakes beat off of us by England, and Gary even said we didn't look credible. I think in 2 games we looked very credible. I think, even in this game, we looked very credible, but everything that came out in the Argentina game also came out in this one. When it came to our game plan, I saw what they were trying to do. When it came to dueling kicks and getting it in the right part of the field, and that's what happens when the back line you're kicking it to is less skillful than you. And it worked a few times. The problem is our set piece, like it has been all tournament, was still a mess. Our lineout, our maul was a mess. And that's a problem that we need to address now. Well, there is no ARC as far as I know. If there is an ARC in the winter, then that means everyone, you don't have that long to sulk because there will be an assembly in January.
Yeah.
But I'm tracking.
It'll be in the fall. I mean, in 2018, which I think is the Eagles' best year in history, Nick Civetta, Cam Dolan line out was a huge asset. It was formidable. It was not only did we win our own, we were disrupting Scotland. Everyone had trouble in the line out against us. Since Civetta's injury in the PNC, I don't know if it's because, could just be coincidence, but since that injury, it has been a shambles. I mean, we lost any intimidation factor of our line out. Now you just hope that you even retain your own, which, I see these great stats on here. And I'm not keeping track at home specifically, but I should, because I think we lose more than the World Rugby app says we do. But regardless, we definitely lose the critical ones. Like every time.
So it says here we lost only 2. My eyes tell me we lost like 5.
It's like they cap it at 2. Once you hit 2, they stop counting lost lineouts because they don't want you to
Pretty much.
Yeah, but whatever it was, if it's only 2, which I'm skeptical, it was definitely like the 2 most critical lineouts. We're got a penalty, huge momentum shift. We're inside, their 10 meters, 10 meters for the try line, and we throw the line out away.
But I mean, even so, that's just maybe like that's them being stolen. But I will say, like, successful set piece conversion from the lineout into a maul, or even like just getting it out, was where we had a lot of problems in this. And when you're trying to play the tactical territory game, you can't have that happen.
I did think that Tonga was getting away with a lot in the maul defense.
Oh my gosh.
So, I'm a little sympathetic to Mighty Joe. I felt like they collapsed. They were off sides, in from the side. I felt like they're getting a lot of leeway to defend that maul. But yeah, I mean, it was just we did bring it down. We then turned the maul over, so it was pretty
losing. And I still don't know why, because this hasn't come out. I haven't listened to the post match press conference that is up on World Rugby's YouTube page, but I don't know what happened to Blaine Scully and Eric Fry at minute 18, because they went off at the same time. And that, I think, although was a huge turning point in general, although it did lead to some electric scores from Mikey Teo.
Yeah.
The loss of Fry and forcing Ali Khalifi to go 62 minutes. And that sort of, I think our starting loosehead in Eric Fry has not been able to take as much of the load in the 3 games that he needed to take against France, Argentina, and Tonga, and it forced Ali in against for the most part, the two looseheads that played the most had played the least in competition before the PNC and during the PNC. So I think that's a problem. Like, neither of them were really match fit to deal with this at this level. So I've said we do have some selection questions, mostly at the loosehead.
I love David Ainu starting. It's a real shame that he went off so quickly.
Yeah, man.
Every game, that would have been great. Especially,
got his World Cup cap. I'm happy for that. Kind of annoyed that Chance didn't get the shot here because he was fresh, And after 2 really tough games against France and Argentina, maybe you needed him. And
we got so much action under Gary Gold before this.
So
what happened?
But I guess with the way this game went is it was so sloppy. It was raining. So this was like one of those weird days in the South where it's sunny and it's raining a lot because it's just so humid. And they were sweating their balls off. It was nasty. And so it was so sloppy. Both teams were awful for a very long time. We scored in some electric fashion thanks to Mikey Teo. Mikey's game, I thought Mikey's game was pretty good. He showed that he could pass. Like, he wasn't really in position to pass in the other 2 games, or he just wasn't passing. His kicks were okay, and he was committed to making the gain line. And he of course scored and was very smart with his placement of the ball both times. The second time he wasn't as lucky to where he could place the ball to give Aj a good kick. But in this game, when we had so much luck with the ball in hand, and we were good, and we've been good with the ball in hand even against France and Argentina, and in this game, the difference between this game and those 2 games where we were making the gain line and just kicking the ball away, we would make the gain line and then we just would get no luck at the breakdown. Either we would outrun our support. There was a few times that Greg Peterson, Nick Savetta, and there were other, there was 8 guys that outran support and turned over the ball because they didn't cheat a little bit. And I'm not saying alligator rolling to present the ball buys you time, and they talk about that. These guys are experts, so I can't really criticize. It was the fact that the Tonga defense was right there and their support wasn't there to end the breakdown and retain possession. And that was a major problem.
The most frustrating thing to me in this whole game, and this is probably of the whole tournament, you could say, was our proclivity to kick the ball away, either, just in general, if a few phases have been run, or even more so when we're getting attacking momentum. And I think it was never as bad as it was in the England test, but we had that problem every week or every fixture. And then against Tonga, we finally held the ball for like 20 phases, and we were doing great. And we marched all the way within the 5-meter line again. And then Savetta got stripped on the way down. They quickly transitioned, kicked it, chased it down, scored a try, then broke our back. So it was like,
that happened twice. That happened twice where we ran like, I think the Knicks, it was like 21, 22 phases. And I forgot the other one because it was on the near side. And that's going to break you.
Yeah.
It's going to break you as a team where you're committed to like playing hard, and you run 18 phases, and then you're 3 meters off, and they just steal the ball in loose play and just jet and score.
But that was the thing that showed you, to me, that even though they had scored at the end of it, Tonga scored, that was the best USA played against Tonga, because it showed if we don't just kick it for like a 1 in 10 low probability attacking chance, and we just hold the ball, Tonga couldn't defend it. We were marching up the field almost. I mean, I don't think they stopped. We failed to get the game line one time in those 20 phases. I mean, we were very easily moving the ball forward, and then you sit there and go, why are we not doing this all the time? Like, if we're in their half of the field and we're making the game line on our runs, why are we kicking? And I get like some teams kick very well, and there's obviously a strategy to tactical kicking and a kicking to make attacking chances, but like we've been trying that and it's not working. This is working, and my biggest question kind of this whole World Cup is, why were we so eager to kick all the time when every time we won the ball we had a decent amount of success?
Yeah, it was that was the most frustrating thing for me. Was just there were some adjustments in this game. Aj didn't kick the ball in play once where there wasn't a reasonable chance for a chase down. We were better in general when we did kick the ball in play about our chase down. There was a weird one where it was kind of bang, bang. Ruben picked up the ball, kicked it deep, and had the tackle, but didn't hold on. Like he got it wrapped and like flew around the guy and was shooken off. And then he goes 20 meters up the field. And it was.
I think Bryce Campbell also had a kick that I thought was a poor decision, like where he tried to grubber it forward.
That was pretty rough.
We were about to have an overload.
Bryce don't kick much.
Maybe we'll chase that down, but if you had held it, we would have had a 2-on-1, and it would have been a try or a great platform for the next phase.
Bryce don't kick that much. It's to give you guys some idea of the difference on this. So Tonga had double the clean breaks we had. Well, more than double. They had 7-15. Then you go to defenders beaten, 20-43. And this is where that probably helps, is they had 16 offloads to our 7.
And they're good at that. I mean, Tonga offloads, keeps the ball alive very well. They're tremendous athletes, and they have great instincts for that sort of play. So, I mean, that's what they do. That's Tonga's strength, and they took it to the U.S. in that department.
One of the things I talked about during the PNC was our defensive intensity and how much that had changed. And credit to strength coach Hugh Bevan and defense coach Jacques Forey. But in the last two games, at the end of the day, you can't miss 43 tackles. So just to give everyone an idea, Tonga had made 148, missed 20. So we missed more than double. If you are forced to attempt close to 200 tackles, you're probably losing your game very badly. The Eagles made 151 tackles, missed 43. And then when you look at turnovers won, they won 15 turnovers in our half. We only won 10 in our half. In their half. So we got beat. Don't get me wrong. It was just so similar to that Argentina game, except the difference is instead of being so much better than us, because Argentina was a class above us. We were just in it. I think very much so that we were even with Tonga, like athletically, skill-wise. We just went out there and stunk it up.
On short rest, which I was obviously a very big advocate of going forward against Argentina. Still glad
it's your fault. It's your fault. We rested no one. We could have had a repeat of South Africa in 2015, where when asked, Aj McGinty would have no idea what playing against South Africa is like, because he was in his hotel room as a deactivated player. But
that's the dice roll you took. I mean, that was the risk you took by going for it against Argentina, and we got
that's been my philosophy, knowing how much of a selection that Gary has done over time. The PNC was the first time he really rotated players, and it worked. And then we didn't rotate players that much this time. And I'm not sure if you rotated players, it would have been any different, at least positively. If you rotated players, it might have been worse in the France and Argentina games comparatively. Like, it might have been a much worse campaign if we had done that. But everyone except Chance Wengleski, who was an injury call-up, played.
Yeah. Did get on?
Yes, he played 5 minutes against France.
Nice. Very good.
So 30 of the original 31 players, everyone received a World Cup cap, which is normally the intent is players 29, 30, and 31 are guys that need to be really good. They need to be good culture guys because they likely won't play. So that if somebody does get injured, they need to be value added immediately. And we had to use all of our guys because we had a red card, of course. And speaking of Malon, Malon had a great game. Defensively, there was some attacking stuff where I was like, but defensively,
that always hurts.
Defensively, he had a great game.
The first 3 minutes of his first World Cup start.
So, 12 tackles for Malon in this one. It was so he came into this game basically cold, and he started. Good for him. Can't really take anything away from him. Like he had a game.
Ruben de Haas too. I think really came into his own this.
I think we kind of knew about Ruben last summer and a little bit in the autumn and a little bit in the ARC. And, he's been continuously selected. I didn't know that he had so many caps until I look at the list and I'm like, does he have 12 caps? I thought Ruben had a great tournament. For such a young guy, he went out and he proved I would say he showed why he was there.
Yeah. And for a position, I think it was very uncertain who the first choice was for the Eagles coming in. I think he's really grabbed that shirt. In my opinion, it's his to lose at this point.
Yeah, I when looking at Sean Davies and Nate Augsburger, who've been great players for the Eagles in the past, I think over time, both of them will, because they're both older. Let me get this correct.
While you look that up, I'll add that DeHaas is an absolute missile of a leg. Even though the guy doesn't like the kicks, but he has an absolute laser.
Oh my gosh! So Sean Davies have basically, and he and Nate Augsburger are competing against each other for a very long time, for the starting scrum half role. Nate is 29, and Sean is 30, and will be 31 in June. So it's like these. When it comes to, you want to have a relatively youthful amount of people. Like our side has never been young, ever. Like in a World Cup, it's always been older players. Like that's just how it has turned out. And it's, if you look at the rosters, I'm gonna put out a piece because I did some research based on World Cups and then based on like how we haven't progressed, and the average players used from the coach's last two games versus the last two games of the next coach is very interesting. And most of the reason behind that is we haven't had a pro league for almost 3 decades, and now we do have pro league, so that should change significantly. Like there should be a very consistent player pool because of Major League Rugby. But I want to say the average of players retained from coach to coach, it was like 6. Like,
yeah.
So, yeah, it was, so for you, who's your player of the tournament for the Eagles?
I would have to say Tony Lamborn, but Ruben DeHaas would probably be my number 2.
You're mean, man. Tony Lamborn's my pick. Player of the tournament, amazing. Ruben DeHaas had a great game against Tonga. Another top player for us, and Tony Lamborn and this player, Marcel Brocky.
Yeah,
they're probably both not going to be around in 4 years. They're both older.
Brocky's best plays against Tonga came while Tonga had advantage, so he didn't get to actually.
Oh, that was such bullshit. I was like, I hate you, Nigel.
What a great grab of that ball up, advantage going back. All right.
So I think, we have a bunch of guys on this squad, just like the last one, that eventually will retire. I just don't think they're going to – I don't think a bunch of these guys are going to retire en masse to where if we had a tournament in February, we would be capping 16 guys the first game.
No, of course.
Which is what happened for like John Mitchell.
Yeah.
You had like 20 guys retired. 10 guys took themselves out of availability, and he had to cap like 16 new people. I think he capped in the first year. So in the first year, he capped 42 players because a bunch of people retired. And I think he capped his total caps eventually was like 48, which is insane. But the ideal was,
America.
The ideal was, well, we're going to have fitness standards, and if you can't pass the fitness test, day one, which is the same thing under Gary. Day one's, just like the Army, it's in processing. Oh, you can't pass the APFT? Oh, sucks to be you, Lieutenant. But basically, yeah, like we have high fitness standards now that didn't exist previously, especially now that we're in we have MLR. Like, to try and get to the point of wrapping this up, a lot of people are saying, the resources for this team, the size of the staff, and like I said, people that we need to educate more. I will say the only full-time coach on this staff is Gary Gold. Jacques Fourie is on a short-term contract funded by World Rugby. Yes, he's sort of been full-time, but he didn't get here till the end of the ARC. I was like, he was the defense coach for like 2 ARC games, but he couldn't install anything. And Scott Lawrence, the previous defense coach who worked for Oracle while he was the Eagles defense coach, had been hired by Atlanta. So they were just kind of like utilizing the systems that were in place, game planning off those, but they didn't have a specialist defense coach. This, I talked about, our defense being better, and in this tournament, it kind of failed us a bit. But the problem is with that, with everything, if you don't have full-time coaches for your national team, like all the tier ones do, they can't consistently check on players and provide individual development during the season when they're with their club.
Yeah. Though I'll say, I think, it's hard to – I find it conflicting. I'm internally conflicted about what to think about the USA's defensive performance. I think in, straight up phase play, regular way defense, the USA is better now than I've ever seen them. I mean, they're not giving up line breaks with little offload. I mean, they're very good now at rotating and containing that. Their defensive failings in this tournament seem to always come in atypical or less common scenarios like transition or kick chase or very specific points of the game where defense has to do something different. And I think, to their credit, between England and Tonga, you could actually see them learning. I mean, they were, if there were 5 areas of the game against England where England was just running rampant over us, like the Mall, for example, by France, 2 of those 5 had been locked up. And by Argentina, 3 had been locked up. And by Tonga, 4 had been locked up. And, there's still that one, and we're still getting gashed. This case, to me, it was kick chase against Tonga. But I think even in 2018, before we got the defense coach, I think about that Ireland fixture when they came here in November, or we went to Ireland in November. Yeah. They were just blowing through us, even in phase play, every few phases. I think we really locked that down. So I think there is actually a lot of progress on the defensive side. It's just it hasn't spread to every specific type of defense yet. But it did look like we're learning. So I think that was –
Yeah, I think, when we look at the KPIs, if I had the KPI sheet, which I didn't develop a KPI sheet, but I know Gary, the high performance, they developed a list of KPIs they wanted to meet for the World Cup. Probably didn't meet all of them. Probably didn't meet a lot of them. But I think they met a lot of them too, because if you look at just where we performed and who we performed against, we made progress. If
there was a KPI for kicks from hand, we definitely
we failed that one. Or maybe we exceeded expectations because of the number of kicks from hand. But I think for anyone who says that the U.S. is behind where we were in 2015, they have a specific agenda. Because we are ahead as a team, as a culture. If you examine all the problems that 2015 team had, this team is so far ahead and so different, and it is a good team.
Yeah.
They can go out and compete and win pretty much against any tier 2 team. They will get a win. Against a tier 1, they can go out and put up a relatively respectable performance, whereas in 2015 we couldn't.
I could feel like I can pretty confidently say that the 2019 Eagles would beat the 2015 Eagles if they played them, but I think there's a little more to it that we have to think about, which I don't have a settled opinion on. But okay, so we're better than we were in 2015, but everyone's better than they were in 2015.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to think about it, okay, so we got the ARC immediately after. Cool. That helps, more regular fixtures. but we had basically an amateur system for 2 of those years. Yeah, pro existed for like 5 weeks or whatever it was. And, and then we had a truncated season in MLR's first year. So mostly amateur system during that period, during the 17-18 season for internationals. And then we basically only had 1 full season of MLR. And that's sort of where we go. So I don't know. Maybe I'm bringing the ceiling down a bit, or I'm managing my own expectations. But I did say this over a year ago when MLR started and we started to play well in 2018 for the Eagles when we were on that streak. I said, 2019 is not how you judge this whole thing. And I had a tweet thread about it today that it's really hard to, go after Gary and say, this coaching staff is awful. Like all these decisions were awful. This team went through a coaching change in the middle of the World Cup buildup. Yeah. Like in the middle of the cycle, complete coaching staff turnover. Because, for whatever reason, John Mitchell, he left to go, coach with the Bulls. And we then had to figure it out. And we found a coach after we qualified. After John Mitchell, he did qualify us as America's One, which is something we'd never done. So we'd never done that. And, then we found a coach that could carry the torch and lead us further forward because we are in a better place than we were in 2017. But I think when we talk about Major League Rugby, I want to see a consistent approach with the national team for more than one cycle. And we didn't have a consistent approach for one cycle here, like judging it, because Gary's only been the coach for I think it's like 22 fixtures, if you include the World Cup fixtures. I need to do the math, but I think that's about correct. I think it's 23. But whereas I want to see a consistent structure with the backup that you get with Major League Rugby, which is, the next 4 years, it'll only just incrementally be getting more professional as the salary cap gets higher. And what's interesting is that on the defensive side, some of the teams don't have full-time defense coaches. So Jock Forey said that with some of the players, they basically had to start from the ground up on the defensive side, which is interesting. So, like I said, was it disappointing? Yeah. Are we in a better place than 2015? Have we made progress? Yes. How do you compete against a tier 1 nation where Eddie Jones has a £10 million budget every year? That's not a World Cup year. And then in a World Cup year, he has like almost an unlimited budget to take his team for training camps and do whatever he wants. That gets a little bit more difficult.
Look, we're a long way from competing with England, but let me ask you this question. We're better. Let's agree we're better in 2019 than we were in 2015. Have we improved more than the average tier 1 nation has improved in that time? Like, are we closer to being on par with an average, middle of the pack?
I think middle of the pack,
like a France, like obviously, like All Blacks. Let's not try to.
I think we've proven that we could compete with the 7, the 8, 9, 10. The back of I think we can, like, back of the pack tier 1. This team is physically there because I bet you if we got freaking Japan's pool, it would have looked different. Like, I'm not saying Japan had an easy road, but they had a weak pool. And that's more because Ireland fell off. Yeah. They peaked early.
And Japan has played great, so
yeah. And Japan peaked right on time. I just think if our pool was different, our results would be a little bit different. Just based on the fact that we've won some games against some of these other teams recently. But I think we can compete, and given on any given Sunday, we might be able to get a win against an 8, 9, 10. Where it gets a little dicey is the 4 through 7. And then I think the 1 through 3, well, we saw the 1 through 3 when we played England. That, we saw that. Against the second best team in the world, they hit us in the mouth and kept hitting us in the mouth, and we had no answer.
Yeah. Argentina's going to haunt me. I was so set up for us to win.
Yeah. That was – yeah, we let that one get by. But when it comes to this team, man, culturally, drive, pride, effort, coaching staff, and
yeah,
I'm behind them. Like, how can you not be? They're great people.
Yeah.
It's going to be – there are some great Eagles that will move on before the next World Cup. That if our system was different, we would be able to generate some centurions. But I think, a lot of guys, some of these guys will move on, and they need to move on because we need to unearth. They need to be forced out by a younger, better player, because that shows a healthy system.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, look, we didn't win any, so we started looking to 2023, but I did enjoy watching the guys play together. They did seem to, again, have a sincere, love internally for each other and for their whole system. So I think that shone through, and I appreciated that, and respect every one of them. And unfortunately, it didn't work out the Eagles' way this time, but obviously still backing the Eagles.
I did ask for questions, so we did get some questions in. Let me check Facebook. We got 2 questions on whatchamadiddly. Let me see if there's any on Facebook. I didn't see any come through Facebook earlier. There's that one. No, I didn't. So nothing on Facebook right now. Although a bunch of likes. So thanks for the likes, guys. I gotta say. But moving on to Twitter. I think I know what the answer is. Aside from the obvious, should Gary Gold keep his job or should he be let go? Well, I know that he doesn't have a contract right now. So the answer is if I was in charge, he would have a 4-year contract on his desk when he returns from the World Cup. Or I would, before he could fly, get on the plane. If I'm in charge, I'm flying, or if I'm there, if I'm the CEO of USA Rugby, I'm saying, hey, Gary, here's your contract. Look forward to seeing you in 2 months. Take some time off. That's what I would say, because I think, like I said, we have made the progress. This guy truly gives a crap about American rugby. He travels, although he hasn't fully moved here based on how often I see him around and where he goes to college games, he goes to MLR games. He lives here basically 8 out of 12 months. So basically he does live here. And I guess you got to let the guy have, a couple months off a year and recharge the batteries. So I've got no nothing there to really say, hey, no. And then the other question was from Life Love Rugby was, when will MLR stop this rapid expansion? Because it will hurt the league. I mean,
2 expansion teams made the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
So I think we have a while to go before there's some evidence that expansion is hurting the league. Not to mention that expansion brings in a big cash infusion.
Yeah. It's like, hey, Expansion will stop the moment an expansion team owner doesn't want to front the rapidly rising buy-in.
Right.
You know,
so I mean, maybe it'll be this year. We'll see that the new teams can't compete. Seeing on the season that doesn't be in the cards. I mean, at least Atlanta and New England look like they'll be competitive as expansion teams this year. There's a lot of the country that's untapped that has club rugby players. So I've seen nothing to believe that we need to forcefully hit the brakes on expansion. I think when there's nothing to expand, they'll stop putting up the expansion fee. And
based on the current level of competition, I think there are enough players coming through in college to fill out the roster of a few more of these teams. Like, because basically when you expand, you have an expansion draft that occurred. So you had a bunch of players from teams around the league move to the newbies. And so they're going to have experienced MLR players, some with multiple seasons. You're going to bring in experienced foreign players, and you're already seeing that. I don't think the level of competition is going to drop. But at some point, when you're trying to move the level of play at a faster rate than the collegiate game, which the collegiate game I don't think is built long-term to fully develop. And I think it's important that the whole collegiate game does get built to further develop American rugby athletes because, given the limited capital right now with building MLR academies, the MLR academy stuff is going to be a slow process. And this is where I talk about holistic alignment with local college rugby with the MLR team so that development of players and everything just – it's all copacetic. But, expansion will stop when people don't want to front millions of dollars. We're in a good place. I think we're gonna hit a pause very shortly just because you need to, and not necessarily because there isn't any money. I think you'll be able to sell a license, but then at a certain point, the teams will be so much further commercially that the new team needs to get their feet under themselves commercially more so than competitively, because you can figure that out competitively. It's about selling tickets and putting bums in seats. That becomes a different, the commercial aspect. And then from Adam Machinsky, Adam's actually a friend of mine. It's like, this was an interesting question. I think very valid. Do our European starters struggle for full game fitness because not many of them are full-time starters overseas?
I think that would be a valid question maybe a year ago. I feel like who are our full-time Europeans now? I mean,
Taylor Mosatelli, so Aj McGinty, who starts for Sale. So I don't not for him, not a question. Taylor Mosatelli now starts for Saracens. So, but I think this is the problem when it came to those guys. Other than Greg Peterson, TD, Joe Tafete, Eric Fry, all had big injuries this year. I think that was the big thing because they didn't build their match fitness through the PNC. They didn't get that chance. That it severely hurt them in the World Cup. That's what I think.
That said, I think there may be something to putting money aside for a second. Some of these guys may be better off long-term rugby playing every day in an MLR setting than being sometimes dresses, sometimes doesn't in Europe. Like I don't know if Paul Asike played with the Harlequins a bit, got injured, if he's not dressing every week or, when he is dressing, he gets a few minutes off the bench, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's better for him because he's in a better training environment, but he's also losing 16 games of, being a star here in MLR. So I think there is something to be said for playing.
So when it comes to some of these guys, Joe doesn't play every day. Like he plays once a week. I just wish it was in the Premiership and not the A League. He plays at least once a week. I wish it was in the Premiership and not the A League. So he still plays and at a high level of competition. TD is basically becoming the starting tight head for Saracens, so that's going to be good for him. David Ayunu, I don't think it matters. I think the level of competition he got this year, because he's in, so you don't really see it because it's all in French. It's all in French. So they basically have all of the top 14 and Pro de they have an academy system where there's it's called the Espoir League, which is like student, and which Espoir is like student. That's basically the word. And so it's a U23 league, all academy players, and they play that. And he played, a bunch of games in that, in addition to playing in the top 14 for a game and playing a whole half in the Champions Cup. So he is getting high quality match time. But there are some guys who, like when Bowman was at Leicester, he never played. Like he played two fixtures. Like he never played. That's a problem. Like if you're just going to go be a camp body somewhere, it's probably not in your best interest. Good
question.
So that's that's all we got. I think we went a little over tonight. I am flying back to Arizona tonight. So Craig, thanks for showing up and grinding this one out with me. Everyone, I guess the legal stuff is I work for MLR, and this is my opinion and not the league's opinion. So we're going to go with that. If you like the show, please give us some likes on Facebook. Invite your friends to like the show on Facebook. If you like it normally in podcast form, please give us a review on iTunes. Helps people find us. There hasn't been a new review lately. Thanks, Amy, for listening in, and and everyone else who listened in. But Amy commented, on the show. But if you like the show, please give us a rating on iTunes, and we will of course read it out. You can even call me some nasty names, and I might bleep them, but I'll read those out. So
I'll read them.
All right, Craig. I'll see you next week.
Take care.